Hello, everyone, and welcome to the First Spiritualist Church, where angels come to welcome you. So I have something very, very special today. So many people ask me about this incredible work of art, this lotus, and they say, "Oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And I say, "Well, you should see the artist. She's one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen." And today, I am so lucky that I get to share with all of you this beautiful artist, Laura Saez. And can you believe this is the first time that she ever picked up a paintbrush? Yes, we are so lucky to have you here today, and I just want to welcome you and thank you for being a part of this church, for giving us this inspiration and this beautiful lotus that feels like not only is it alive, but it welcomes everyone with the color and the beauty and the love that you put into it. I guess I would like to start off by asking you, how is it that you have come to know the First Spiritualist Church?
Well, my husband is the person that brought me here. The very first time was over 30 years ago. And he used to come here to get readings every week from Reverend Billy Baker. And he loved her. And this church, as soon as he met me, he had to bring me here for readings and for psychic fairs. And this has been the place.
So now, your husband is on the other side, and as spiritualists, we don't believe in death, and there is no separation. Even though you may not have him here in physical form, he's constantly with you.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I've had the opportunity to connect with him and feel his energy, and he is just simply amazing, and as are you. So can you tell me how it is that you got reconnected to the church after he graduated, made his transition?
After he crossed over, I was interested in continued connection with him, and I decided to come back for one of the little psychic mini reading weekends you have on the Sundays. And that's when I saw Reverend Lorina. And the minute I saw her, something clicked. There was just something about this lady. She was floating through the church, looked like an angel floating. And then I also read her bio, which impressed me to a great degree. And I thought, she's the one that I would like to set up a meeting with to have readings. And she's been the one ever since. She's fabulous.
Aw, thank you. I'm so glad that we met and so blessed, and I will never forget the times that we shared together and the tears that we cried together, and just so many things transpired after meeting Laura. And I found out that she used to draw cartoon characters on paper with George, and George really impressed upon me to ask her for a great trust. And I remember asking her, did you have George's shirts in the closet, something that you were keeping of his special? And she agreed, and I said, George wants you to trust me. Can you, or would you be willing to give me those shirts and let me make something for you? And I don't remember you hesitating. I remember you saying,
I didn't.
Absolutely.
It just was such an amazing, gift for you to actually make this blanket with your hands and to be able to be, keeping his shirts and have them be something that I could use. It just was a wonderful gesture on Reverend Lorina's part.
Well, I don't normally do this, and nor have I, but George, he's a very persistent spirit, and to say the least.
Right.
And I've gotten to know and love him as much as I do Laura, and this is a testimony to the spirit never dies. Because as he came to me and inspired me to make a blanket So she brought these shirts to me, and I took them home, and I cut them all up, and I laid out a pattern all over my floor. And as crazy as it sounds, because it does sound crazy, my husband was there and witnessed the whole thing. But I took all of these shirts, and it's known as a crazy quilt. How fitting. And and I laid out a pattern on how I thought the quilt should look. Well, my husband, being the wonderful help that he is, he's really patient with threading a sewing machine. So I would have him trying to thread, and he has better eyesight than I do. So he would be threading the sewing machine, and I'd lay out all the squares, and then I would go back to the sewing machine, and I'll be darned if those squares weren't moved. I would go back to the quilt, and he saw me laying them out, and now it's like in a different pattern. After 3 different attempts on this, I just said, forget it. It's just gonna go the way George wants it, obviously. So we sewed it all together, and I do really old school quilting. So I have these big boards, 1x1s, and it takes up the entire living room. And I tack it all down, and I put some quilt batting, and then I tack the top on once it's all sewed together. And George hits again. George hits again. I can't get the middle sewn. Now, I don't know if any of you know about quilting, but usually you work on the edges. You sew, and then you roll the quilt to the middle. But when you're sewing the pattern, you actually have to have the middle done before you frame it. So for some reason, the middle wouldn't stick. And ironically, I happened to have a heart in my hand that was a gift from somebody. But I had another heart just like this. And this heart was a turquoise blue with a red stone on the heart on this corner part, which to me, it was like the symbol of the heart within the heart. And Cliff said to me, you know, Cliff is my husband. And he says to me, you know why the middle didn't sew? Because you're supposed to sew by hand the heart inside the middle. I'm like, of course, who's the psychic here? It's gotta be the husband, right? And so we did that and sewed the heart into it. And it was with such a great pleasure that she trusted me to do this, and that George is like, oh, you've got to do this. This is something you need to do for her. And, you know, when I presented the blanket to her, now whenever it's cold or whenever she's going through a moment of wanting to connect with him or missing him, then now she can take those shirts that used to sit in the closet and wrap them around her and just feel that energy and that love. And so it was a small token of what I could do for you as a beautiful being and introducing such a wonderful spirit to me. So in turn, you know, I was just kind of saying, well, someday, if you'd like to draw a lotus, I'd like to put something in Johnson Hall. And we have a hall that's attached to the church where we have an amazing fellowship and incredible food. Oh, just a great food committee who, I'll go off. I'll talk about that later. But let me tell you, one day she popped in with this lotus on a piece of paper, and she says, so is this something that you're thinking about? And I just looked at it, and I looked at the wall, and I looked at the lotus, and I looked at the wall, and I said, just a minute. And then my husband popped in, of course, the other not psychic person.
Right.
And I said, come here, I want to show you something. And I showed him the paper on the lotus, and I said, follow me. And we walked into the church, and we sat on the pew. When you first enter in, it's the back pew, but technically it's the front pew. And I sat there, and I looked at this wall, and I looked at the lotus, and I looked at the wall, and I looked at the lotus, and I said, this doesn't belong in Johnson Hall. This belongs right here on this wall. And she's like, well, it might be pretty small. And I said, oh no, it's not gonna be small. it's gonna be on the whole wall.
Oh my God.
And she goes, well, I don't know how to paint, and I've never painted, and I said, but Spirit's telling me that it's gonna go on that wall. So I got a hold of my brother Butch, and a wonderful sign maker, painter, just a sweet stepbrother. And I said, hey Butch, I have somebody here that's going to do something dynamic in this church. Could you help her out? And he says, oh sure, I'd love to. And he's just a kooky, wonderful, loving energy that matched very well with Laura's energy. And next thing I know, they were out shopping for paintbrushes, and he had put the pattern up here on the wall, and then he told her, all these colors need to be blended, and to take them home and practice one petal at a time. So this is the masterpiece. This is the first time, correct, that you
Yes.
ever held a paintbrush. Tell me about your experience with Butch shopping.
Oh, it was exciting. It was scary too, because I really didn't know what I was going to be doing. But he guided me as to what kind of brushes to buy, and then I went ahead and bought the paints, each color for the chakras at Home Depot. And then I proceeded to blend it in with white and get the different tones for the different areas of the petal to bring out the depth in each petal. And I practiced at home, and they didn't turn out well at first, and I was afraid. I told Lorina, I said, look, I'm gonna be practicing on your wall, because this is a whole different thing from any pastels or pencils or anything I've used in the past. So it was just a matter of getting over here and doing it, and I thought, well, I want to try one petal and see how it works up here. And I stepped back and I thought, that doesn't look too bad. I thought, well, let me try another one. And then I just kept going and going, and where I saw that it needed like adjustments in shading or whatever, then I'd go ahead and put some depth in, whatever. But I would have to, well, one thing is being up here and painting, you can't really see how it's coming out. You have to step back. So I would go to the back of the church and look. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, I did that? Whoa. Okay, I'll do another petal. Okay. So I'd go up and do some more. Step back, and that's how it worked. Every day that I came back to do the flower, I kept going faster and faster each day. It just flowed.
Well, I know I would come in here to see how it was going, and the doors were open, the windows were open, and she had this exotica music going, which is like an islandy music.
Yeah.
And I had some palm trees in here, and I would come in and I'd sit down, and she'd be like in her dress, kind of swaying to the music, listening to Bretta Is, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and all of this incredible music, this Hawaiian music, and then the exotica music would play. And I swear, it was like the entire church was dancing. It was just amazing and beautiful, and the energy. And so knowing that not only this was painted on the wall, but every stroke was filled with love, energy, music, brilliance, God, God, God in people form, God in paint form, God in flower form, and God in sound. Spirit filled this church, and it was magical. It was so beautiful, and the plants were dancing. They were swaying. There was no wind, but they were swaying. And this girl was up here just going like she's done this all her life. And it was just incredible, incredible. And you know, we would pull the screen down so that nobody could see, and just these little tips were sticking out, and everybody would want to go and pull the blind. I'm like, no, no, no. No, you don't look at a masterpiece until the artist has completed her job. And tell me how you felt when it was complete, when you put the paintbrush down.
It was a sense of satisfaction and joy. I thought, wow, I did it. And it was like only 23 days from start to finish. That stunned me. I thought it would take me 2 months, maybe longer. I didn't know.
Well, in the beginning, you didn't think you could do it at all.
True. But look at now.
So do you think that's a testimony to everyone out there who says, I could never do that, I can't do that, I don't know how to do that, and
It is.
it's too big of a job to do that? And could you honestly say that you as a person just stood here and did it, or can you say that you felt spirit moving through your body?
Oh, well, without a doubt. I had help. I would start painting, and within a few minutes, I would go into this zone. It was just a shift, and I didn't even have to think. It was just like my mind was clear and my hand was moving, and it was happening. It was amazing. And I remember Reverend Kimberly walked in here and while I was doing the painting, and she said she could see violet color all of my arms while I was working.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
It just, to have been a part of watching this and remembering that little piece of paper. And I looked at the wall and I said, no, it's gonna be up there. And
That scared me.
mm-hmm.
Thinking, oh my gosh, to do a project, I've never done a mural, anything that size at all. It was kind of spooky.
So what would you say as not so much just a testimony, but an influence to be able to allow someone to open up and let spirit work through them, whether it's inspirational speaking, music, being a parent, like anything that you can imagine, you know, that you would think you could never do. What would you tell our beautiful public as inspiration in how to just open yourself up and let spirit work through you?
Well, it's just know that you can do it. There are no limitations. And we are creators. We are God. It's just a matter of channeling that. And you can do anything that you put your mind to.
I love that when you said we are God.
Absolutely.
Because I think that when people separate their self from God and from spirit, that's where the limitation comes in. I mean, if we are all connected to the source that created all the universes and everyone here, the planets, the rocks, the animals, the oceans, the fish, the whales, and people of all color, all nationality, all sex, all everything. Like, if something so amazing, known as God, all that is, can create on that expansion and that level and that which we're created from, then it is only the mind of man that creates the limitation, correct?
On the human level, that's where that's at. The questioning and the doubts. When you release all of that, then it's your true inner self can come out. And that's where nothing is impossible.
Well, I know, because I'm here often enough, to know that this is a huge focal point of the church. And I have heard so many people say when I meditate, and sometimes I can't get out of my head, I just sit there in the pew and I look at the lotus, and I can see it breathe, and I can see it move. And little do they know that I believe it's you allowing spirit to expand through you that now touches so many people on so many levels, you know. And I remember it was about maybe 2 weeks after we showed everyone the finished product, right?
The unveiling.
The unveiling. And there was somebody who had come here from a very long time ago, would be even before Reverend Billy Baker.
Right.
And they had told me, oh, how did you get a picture of a flower that a pastor from, or a reverend from the past used to paint? And I said, excuse me? And they said, oh, well, one of the reverends that used to be here, this is kind of the form that they used to paint in. And I said, oh, well.
Reverend Billy Baker.
Isn't that interesting?
You know, and here, she's the one that was my husband's friend.
Well, I don't know if she painted or.
It was her husband. It was her husband. And I recall that lady when she was here. I happened to come into the church unexpectedly while this lady was here. And you introduced me to her, and she says that she knew Reverend Billy and her husband Wendell.
Mm.
And she told me that she was surprised with the flower because that was the exact same style as Wendell had when he did his flower paintings. So obviously, doesn't that tell us that Billy Baker and her husband, they were influencing me while I had the paintbrush in my hand? I mean, they were here too.
So the influence of Reverend Billy Baker brought you back here.
Absolutely, there you go.
And I was so blessed to be introduced to you by Spirit, and then for them to tap in and say, why don't you ask her if you can cut up her husband's shirts and make a blanket, which I've quilted off and on. It has been years and years since I've quilted, but all of a sudden here I'm offering to make a blanket,
and a beautiful blanket, just full of love. It's just absolutely beautiful with the heart in the middle. Oh, it's just, I love it so much.
Well, this is extraordinary. And I want to tell you something else that's really extraordinary. So Laura is just kind of like a pure spirit, what I would call a very enlightened old soul. And even though she was not as educated in the facets of spiritualism like her husband George, she has this uncanny knowing, this knowingness of how things evolve and exist, and kind of always trusts in the moment and herself. And she said to me, I'm not really sure about how to do the middle here, but this is what I came up with. Well, if you look into the teachings of Alice Bailey teaches that we don't come from here and raise up. We already come from source, and then we come down through our learning and we rise back up. And even in some of the pictures that Alice Bailey's books have, it depicts the same thing that's in the middle of this lotus. So if you look into the center of the lotus, it is actually an example of what is within us, and the chakras being the colors of how we expand. And look at how this is expanded and moved out. So not only is it a masterpiece of art, but it's just a masterpiece in its own, touching in all of our energy centers and our destiny of soul ascension and expansion. And I really invite you to come here in person and look at this beautiful lotus. And if you're lucky enough, you might get to meet this beautiful artist. Is there anything else that you would like to expand on about your experiences here at First Spiritualist Church since we've had our meeting? You know, now she comes here more often, and we enjoy every time you're here. She's our plant fairy. She takes care of our plants, and just could you tell our listeners and our wonderful everyone who's listening here what it is that you feel that you've gained, because you've given so much. What is it that you've gained here at the church, and why you feel so connected to this place?
Well, it's the beauty of the energy here, the people, the support, and knowing that the spiritual connections as well. And you feel them here at the church. That to me is just amazing.
Now, do you feel that, I know because some people are like, well, I don't really care to go to church because it's got that really religious, judgmental connotation. I mean, what is it that you experience as a spiritual being here, besides the community and the support and the love and the incredible food and the music and just the energy here? What is it that you get on a spiritual level from being here?
Well, I feel like it also has helped in my expansion in a spiritual way too. And being here with the people that are gifted and connected, like Reverend Lorina and the different pastors that it's just been a wonderful experience. Just the energies. It's simply the energies.
So you would say it's really helped you to open up and expand. And do you feel, I know that you're very connected with George always, but do you feel it helped you to be able to connect even on a deeper level with him? Understanding your gifts and how to fine tune them?
Yes, it has, because I've taken some of the classes here, and they've been just absolutely amazing. The universal spiritual law and the mediumship classes and angel communication, many fascinating things that can just help expand your knowledge and to help you learn about yourself within too.
Oh, I love that. Yes, to help learn about yourself within. How many times have you heard, this church has changed my life?
I hear it all the time. Different people. The new faces come in and there's transformation.
I know personally, even as the pastor here, this really fills my cup. It does. And I've always said that to me, to be in a church where I feel that my cup's getting full, and and a place where we have all different ages. We have younger people, we have millennial, we have I don't know what age category to put everyone in, but I'm just going to simplify it by saying from young to old. And oddly enough though, it seems like you can't really tell how old people are here, because I know people that are in their 80s that I thought were in their 60s. So it never surprises me. I think that as you become aware of who and what you are spiritually, like it taps into that wellspring of the fountain of youth, and just knowing that there's more to life than just being born and struggling through. And struggle is such a heavy word, so I would like to use experiencing through, motivating through, living through, finding through. Yes. And I can't thank you enough for giving this to the world, and your friendship.
Oh, thank you.
Your love that you share with everyone here.
Well, it gives me joy to think that my artwork affects the people here at the church like it does. It just warms my heart.
Well, we are so thankful to have you here and to finally introduce you to the public and to everybody, the mystery artist. This is our own mystery artist, Laura Sayers, and I would like to invite you to come and visit this beautiful church at 3777 42nd Street, San Diego, 92105, First Spiritualist Church. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. If you like what you see, Yelp us, like us, love us, subscribe, and share. Because once you come here and experience this and see the talent, the love, the light, the mediumship, the healing, and the knowledge, and it isn't just what we offer, it's what we allow Spirit to come through and give to all of you. So when you connect with those people here, you're connecting with the universe and all that is. And most importantly, the biggest message I want you to take away from here is this is a result of someone who said, I don't think I can do that. And I've never done anything like that. So let this be a testimony that you can do anything. Create well, my friends, create well. God bless you and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.